Hello, and welcome to another edition of our Quick Tips series. My name is William Hollis. I'm an associate librarian with Mandel Public Library. And in case you're not familiar, our Quick Tips series is a series where we go over different resources and tools so that you can advance professionally and personally as we look to provide support during this pandemic. So what we're going to look at today is actually a site from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is commonly known as BLS, for Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov. This site actually tracks all sorts of employment trends, and there are numerous resources in it, but we are going to focus on learning more about professions and their expected growth, whether they're expected to grow much faster than average, about average, or less than average. And what that means basically is this site will project the need for a particular profession. So it will tell you if you're interested in a certain profession, it will tell you all sorts of information or provide all sorts of information to you about that profession. So with no further ado, since we're in a library, let's take a look at librarian. Now, again, when you're using this, you can put in any profession or anything you want into the search bar right here. But we are going to choose librarian because I'm not in a library. So if I search librarian, and we go ahead and search, you are going to see all sorts of information, and there's library technicians and assistants, all sorts of different, similar professions. So let's take a look at librarians. When we click on this particular link, you are going to see some quick facts along with plenty of information about it. And I just want to make sure that you are aware of these resources, or if you are interested in a particular profession. Let's say you're looking to switch careers. Let's say you're looking to begin a career, for example. Then you're going to want to know about this resource so that you can investigate different professions before you start investing your time and energy into pursuing it. So as we take a look at librarians, you'll see the median pay. Median being the not quite the average. It's not the average, it's close, but the average could be thrown off actually if someone has an absurdly high number or someone is extremely low. That can move the average. So what we use here instead, or what the site uses here, is the median. So for example, say if it's 5 people, if it's 5 librarians, the middle between 1 and 5 would be 3. So they're going to see how much that third librarian makes. I hope that wasn't too complicated or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that we understand what the median pay is. So basically that's the middle person. That's not the middle number because that can be thrown off, but it's the middle person. Like if you have 5 people, the highest paid person, the lowest paid person, they're looking to see what the middle person makes. So now that we've explained median, as you can see for a librarian, the median pay was $59,050 per year. They also have it broken down by hour. So it's $28.39 an hour, which is pretty good. And then also the typical entry-level education, that's how much schooling you would need to get into this profession. So as you can see, for a librarian, you would be looking at more education than normal, because you would go beyond a bachelor's degree or a 4-year degree. You would then go on to a graduate degree. So as you can see, whether or not you need work experience, you don't necessarily. And then you see the number of jobs, that's a projection. And now what's especially important, because you don't just want to look at the money or the degree, you want to see if there's going to be a need, for a projected need, I should say. No one knows the future, but this outlook is a projected need to see, okay, about how many librarians will we need in the future? And they go out to 10 years. So this is looking out to 2028. And you'll see that the growth is expected to be 6%, which is as fast as average, meaning that this is a decent outlook. It's not the best outlook, but it's not the worst one either. So as you can see, employment change, that's how many new jobs will be anticipated. And now you can, find out more about what librarians do. You have these tabs here, and it goes into all sorts of information if you wanted to look in depth about librarians. the work environment. As you can see, you see whether or not there are, the largest employers of librarians, I should say. This tells you what percentage of librarians are employed where, what the work schedules are is important. And then obviously that's all well and good, but how do you become one? So this is especially important. As you can see, you need a master's degree in library science. And this is also just to show you what you would look for, and you would obviously put in your own profession, but this is just an example of the information that you can find. So this tells you need a master's degree, and basically that the program normally takes 1 to 2 years to complete. And because it's a master's degree, that's in addition to a bachelor's degree. So if you wanted to become a librarian, you would need to prepare yourself for plenty of school, for example. So, this tells you also too about any licenses, certifications, and registrations that public school librarians typically need a teacher's certification, and that you might need to pass a standardized test. I actually did pass that test, even though I'm not a public school librarian. I actually did pass that test. So, but the only reason why I knew about that test in the first place was because of the research about this particular profile or this particular profession. This also lists important qualities. So really every and anything you want to know about a profession, you're going to want to, take a look at this. So, this talks about the pay, the job outlook. You see that it's, about as fast as average. And then you can look and see areas in terms of in the different states, similar occupations. If you didn't want to necessarily be a librarian or you wanted that sort of training, then you could take a look, obviously, at, similar professions. Let's look at something else. Let's say you looked at librarian and you said, you know what, that is way too much school for me, which nothing wrong with that. You can either search here, BLS.GOV, or we're in this Occupational Outlook Handbook. Let's go ahead and click on that link. Let's put in cashier. Let's say you said, you know what, I don't have time to invest in, all of that schooling. Let me take a look at cashier. So you put in cashier. You will go ahead and click on that information. Now, I chose this particular occupation for a reason, because I want you to follow along closely. So let's say I look at the pay, and let's say I say, okay, I just need a job. This looks good to me. I'm not working right now. I'll take $23,650 or $11.37 per hour. Look, you notice typical entry-level education. There's no education, no specific education required, I should say. So you don't need any work experience. There will be short-term on-the-job training, meaning that they would most likely go over how to use the register and different specific job training for that location. And then look, as you can see here, the number of jobs says 3,648,500. So you might think, okay, that looks like a good situation until you take a look at the job outlook. Now, as we just talked about with librarians, the job outlook 2018 to 2028, you see -4%. That means there are going to be less cashiers. So common sense should tell you that you're not going to want to necessarily go into a profession where it's expected to decline. That means that they are not going to be looking for cashiers. That position is not going to be in demand. And I'm sure you might recognize that in your local Walmart, for example, when you see all of these self-checkout machines. So that's just a quick illustration of how this Occupational Outlook Handbook can be valuable. But let's go ahead, let's go forward. Let's say that librarian is too much. Let's say that's too much work, for example. You say that's too much for me, I'm not interested. And then let's say cashier, you say, well, there's not really a good outlook with that. Let's go ahead and look at let's look at another position. So let's think about that. Let's say I said iron worker. Let's say you were interested in a trade. So structural iron and steel workers. Let's take a look at that. Now, again, you notice the median pay. You say, wow, okay, $53,000, that's almost as much as a librarian. Okay, we're moving along. Typical entry level education. As you can see, high school diploma or equivalent. So instead of having to obtain a master's degree, now you can obtain, you know, another degree, or you can obtain a high school diploma and get into a trade. Now, also, let me also offer a disclaimer. I'm not arguing for any position over the other. It depends on the individual. So I have to make sure that I point that out. But as you can see, depending on the path that you would like to choose, maybe you say, okay, a high school diploma, and then I can be an iron worker, and that looks like it pays a decent wage. You know, work experience, you don't need that. Now, this is important. As you can see, the on-the-job training, that's an apprenticeship. Now, an apprenticeship can vary in length. I can't tell you exactly how long an apprenticeship would be because that can vary. If you look into that, and actually perhaps I can do that on another quick tips video, you can find out more information. So I don't want you to think that this is a shortcut. This is just a different type of training. But again, it all depends on the individual. As you can see, the number of jobs, 98,600. And then what did we say was the key? Job outlook, 2018 to 2028, 11% growth, much faster than average. So librarians was 6%, that was as fast as average. The cashier was -4%, meaning that there will be less cashiers in the future. And then the outlook for iron workers is that it is 11%, which is much faster than average. So in other words, there will be an expanded need or an increased need for iron workers in the future. So when you're seeking out an occupation, you're going to want to check out those that have a greater growth, because that means there will be more opportunities in the future. So that is my quick tip. Again, you can take a look at all of this information. This is BLS.GOV. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of our quick tips. And also make sure that you stay in touch with the library. Check out our website, wpb.org. You can reach me at whollis at whollis at wpbcitylibrary.org is where you can reach me if you have any questions or anything you'd like to follow up with. We have many virtual programs available. We are still supporting the community, so we want you to be aware of that, and let us continue to be a resource to you. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Take care and be safe.